Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, and that is the R in the RK Stumblingbear, and I'm a reader and a writer. And I am back to do my January wrap-up, talk about the books that I read in January. So the first thing that I finished in the month of January was Comey Can't Communicate, Volume 23, continuing this wonderful series that you've been listening to me talk. Well, if you've been part of my channel, been watching my channel for a while, you've been hearing me talk about this series for a while. Tadano and Comey are now getting to figure out their relationship, and it's just really cute and really sweet. Then I finished The Will of the Many by James Eilington, and this is a epic fantasy, I would probably say, falls in that realm. This follows Diego, who's going by Vis. He is an assumed dead prince of a country that had been taken over by this bigger empire called the Hierarchy. And in the Hierarchy, they use a form of magic called the Will. And you're able to seed or give that to somebody of a higher status. And those at the top have hundreds and thousands of people who are giving them will, so they are very powerful. And Vis he just wants to escape the Hierarchy. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it, doesn't want to have to participate in any of it, and yet he gets drawn into the machinations of this empire through an adopted father and in a rebellion, and he's just trying to find his place in the world and come to grips with, does he want vengeance? Does he want to disappear? What does he actually want? And I really enjoyed this. And then I read Home in a Lunchbox by Cherry Moe. This is a picture book that I picked up because of the recommendation of Ashley over at the Realm of Kid Lit Comics. I trust Ashley with any recommendation that I get from her, especially for children's literature. And so I picked this up, started reading it. I'm only a few pages in and I start sobbing. Not because it's like sad, really. I felt the emotion. And I like that Cherry Moe does a very good balance of letting the images talk for itself and having words. This is a joyful experience. This little girl, she has moved to America from Hong Kong, doesn't speak a lot of English, and is having a hard time communicating with her classmates. They're not like picking on her, but they're just not engaging with her because she doesn't speak. Pretty normal reaction. Every time that she opens her lunchbox, though, she just feels the love of her family and of her culture, and ends up at the end getting to share that love and culture with her classmates. Food is a way of communication, and this was so immensely adorable, and I'm buying 2 copies, one for each of my granddaughters. And also fulfills the children's picture book prompt on the WIC Readathon. I then finished The Exiled Fleet by J.S. Dews. This is the sequel, or the second book in the Divide trilogy. And we're picking up with Cavalon and Adequin. In the first book, they are both stationed on the rim of the universe, to where space does not extend. And that extension of, like, where the end of space is, begins to collapse, hence the decorations on the books of the exploding ships, because these ships don't have drives. They can't run away because they are staffed by prisoners of all sorts. Cavalon and Adequin are able to rally, save people from their ship, and then they go to the jump gate to get out, figure there's a bigger issue at foot, and decide that no, the Sentinels who are there at the edge of space deserve to be rescued, and go figure out a way to do that. This is a continuation of that story as they are working to get the Sentinels out of the area that of space they called the divide, where it's the perimeter of space. There are some plot twists in the middle of the story that I didn't like. They're things that happen quite commonly in sci-fi that I read, at least, and they're not tropes that I like. However, I think Dews pulled it off in the end, got the story to a good point where I do want to continue reading the book, even though there are some things in the middle that irk me. And I think that's a mark of a good writer, is not every reader's going to like what you do, but if they can accept that, okay, fine, logically for this story, it makes sense, let's go with it, and I want to continue reading, then you did a good job. This also fulfills my sequel prompt for the WIC Readathon. And then the last book I finished in the month of January is A History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Neuvel. I'm part of a Goodreads buddy read group, and this was one of the books for January. And this is a historical sci-fi. Now, if you have read any Neuvel before, you'll know that his writing style is experimental at best. You know, instead of using like quotation marks for when people are talking, it's just a dash, and there's no dialogue of who says what. You just kind of have to infer from whether someone says someone's name or not. Also throwing in some other encounters and some like letters. He likes doing mixed media kind of sort of stuff. But this is following two women who are considered the 100. It's a mother and daughter. They're an alien race, and they have the mandate to take humans to the stars. And they know that they are being tracked by some other of their race and who want to kill them. This knowledge of why has been lost through time, and you get a little bit of that in the book. But you don't get any real answers about the aliens, which I was fine with. That was okay. That doesn't bother me. I really enjoyed the historical aspects where we are presented with different figures in the history of rocketry and space history, especially because they aren't the names that you would normally hear. They're not the Mercury 7. They're not, John Glenn. They're not, Christopher Kraft Columbus. They're not the white names that you hear from NASA. But they are names that have had a big impact on space as well. Loved the historical bits woven in there. I wasn't too much a fan of the story. And I know I said to my buddy read group that it was kind of the violence. It seemed that was like the key aspect of the aliens that set them apart from the humans, is they were violent, and that's why they had that women at least had certain rules, or when you meet the men, they're always killing somebody. It wasn't actually the violence that put me off. It was more with the story. Yeah, at the beginning we're following Mia, who's trying to get Werner von Braun to the Americans at the very end of World War II. And then after that, it kind of jumps around, and you're getting more of like a vignette. And as the farther you go in the story, there's just a lot happening in the history portion that you aren't getting in the actual story sections. And so I was feeling disconnected with the characters. So I am not going to continue with the trilogy, but I did really enjoy the historical side of this book. So that is all the things that I finished. However, I do have myself set up into February going forward. I multi-read, so you're going to get to see a little bit of that. I am currently at least 75% of the way through After Atlas by Emma Newman. This is the book I'm using for my pattern prompt in January. Didn't have it quite finished, but that's okay. And this is like a sci-fi mystery, so it's kind of a nice genre blend that I wasn't expecting. I am working on Enigma by Ryan Southwick. This is one of our self-published science fiction contest books, and I'm only like 10 chapters into this. So I'm gonna work on this one first. I have 3 others that I need to read before I can vote on who I think should go towards the semifinals. So this is like alien space. Yeah, there's some espionage issues, at least in the first 10 chapters. It's a little bit hard to explain what's going on. I've also just barely started Death of an Author by Nanedia Korafor. This is her 2025 new release from January, one of the ones on my anticipated reads, and so I've just started reading it this past week, only a couple chapters in. And then for my buddy read group, I'm also reading The City of Glass by Nevo. And this one is kind of more literary. We're following a demon who is remembering like a city that she feels like she helped birth to greatness. At the same time, she's in the city after angels have destroyed it, and so like she's trying to rebuild it. I'm a little lost, but Nevo's writing is great, so I'm still reading. So those are all the books that I have read in January, and the ones that I'm actively reading as I am going into February. I'd love to know what your best book of January was. Please let me know down below. Thank you and have a great day.